chance that when all is said and done, Adam Fantilli is going to be the best player to ever wear a Blue Jackets jersey. Is that overkill considering he's only played 2 seasons so far? Well, let's discuss on today's Locked on Blue Jackets.
You're Locked on Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked on Blue Jackets, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get things started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every single day. Locked on Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. I also have to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And right now, new FanDuel customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Today, we're talking about Adam Fantilli. I was going to do another free agent episode, and then I thought, you know what, I want to talk about Adam Fantilli. So we're gonna do that instead. Just finished his second season. Technically, you know, he's only had 1.5 seasons. His first season got cut short due to injury, but I want to talk about how his sophomore season went, how he busted himself out of that sophomore slump that he started in, and also this is maybe sacrilegious for some old school Blue Jackets fans, but when all is said and done, is Adam Fantilli going to be looked at as the best Blue Jacket ever? Obviously, it's very early days, but early returns are looking pretty promising, right? So let's get into it. I want to talk about kind of the season that he had at first, because it's really kind of a season of two halves, right? Is he had a little bit of a slow start to the season. By which I mean he didn't really have consistent line mates. He struggled. Obviously, he missed. When did he get hurt last year? Like early February, I think. He obviously took that calf laceration in a game against the Crackin. Missed the rest of the season. Came back, and I think a lot of people were hoping that he would kind of jump out the gate, just like Ken Johnson jumped out the gate. Right? Didn't quite happen. Had a pretty slow start to the first half of the season. You know, there was a lot of, let's say, I was going to say smug, but smug doesn't seem quite right. There were a lot of Ducks fans, and also Habs fans, surprisingly. And I don't know why they're here, but tweeting screenshots of Adam Fantilli's stat line like a couple of months into the season, and he only had, I think, like 7 goals in his first 30-something games of the season. And, you know, there was a lot of, not panic necessarily, but a lot of people being like, well, he's supposed to be the chosen one. He's supposed to be, like, the best to ever do it, despite the fact that, again, he's 20 years old. Turned 20 in October of last year. Like, he's 21 in October. So still extremely, extremely, extremely young. And the fact that he didn't light the league on fire in his second season, I think is something that shouldn't have been a surprise to many people. However, something happened about halfway through the season. And that thing, well, I think it was exactly halfway through the season, actually. I think it was the 42nd game of the season. Sean Monahan goes down with an injury halfway through a game. Adam Fantilli jumps up into that 1C spot and just takes off, right? Finishes the season with 31 goals, 23 assists for 54 points, which beats his rookie season numbers like almost double. He had 27 points in 49 games in his rookie season. This season, 31 goals, 23 assists, 54 points, played all 82 games, was one of only a handful of Blue Jackets to do that. Just kind of, again, just really, really something clicked, right? And I don't know whether that was he's waiting for this opportunity, he's got it, go, right? Or whether it's that something just clicked, something unlocked. I think, and we talked about this with Jeff Saboda when we had him on a couple of weeks ago, like he took a lot from Sean Monahan, which is something that we talked about a lot, kind of around about the Monahan signing, right? Is, well, what does he bring to the team apart from on-ice stuff? And the answer is he gives an adult for the younger Blue Jackets, especially the young centers, to learn from, right? The Blue Jackets, like their last, I'm trying to think of who their last decent veteran center was, right? They've had some very, very good players. Like, their last decent veteran center might have been Matt Duchene, who was here for about 5 minutes, right? Like, you could argue Brandon Dubinsky, but he started to decline, like, probably a few years before his career finally came to an end, right? So it's been a minute since the Blue Jackets have had, like, an elite, like, not necessarily elite, but a top 6 center who is an adult and who has played center his entire career, right? Boone Jenner is an option, but Boone Jenner is a winger who played center for a long time, right? Sean Monahan is a center, and I think Adam Fantilli learned so much from watching Monahan, which was one of the key things, right? Was, well, we had actually, I think I had a conversation about this on the show of like, well, would, like, someone asked in, would you put Adam Fantilli on Monahan's wing and let him learn that way? And I said, no, I think you put them on different lines because then he can watch him from the bench as opposed to try to watch him in game, right? And clearly he was watching, right? Because when Monahan went down with that injury, Adam Fantilli jumped. Again, what did I say? 7 goals in his first 30 or 35 games of the season. The second half of the season, he had 24 goals, I believe, including 2 separate hat tricks. One in Toronto, where his mom threw a hat on the ice, which was extremely cute. One in New York in Madison Square Garden. So, he loves the big moments, let's say. Had a bunch of other, like, multi-goal games, but finished the season with 6 goals in 4 games. He had 4 goals in that weekend, home and away against Washington, added a goal against Philadelphia, added another goal against New York, the Islanders, to finish the season off. And there was, we got to, what was it? I think, was it his second hat trick maybe? And I looked and I was like, he might hit 30 goals here. Like, he had some slumps, like every young player. He would go, 5-6 games without scoring, 5-6 games without registering an assist. But you can't deny that the second half of the season was very, very different to the first half of the season. And I do think that there was a real pop in his game that maybe it's just coincidence that it happened when Monahan went down, but even when Monahan came back and Fantilli kind of moved back to that 2C spot, which I think it's probably going to be even closer to a 1A, 1B situation next season, he was still putting up the points and he was still putting the puck in the net, and he was still, and even in the first half of the season, like, he was doing all of the right things in terms of offense. But I think watching Monahan got him to kind of round his game out a little bit, and he was like, right, okay, when I'm put in this situation, then that's what I can do. Putting it with Marchenko was great for him. I think giving him the chance to play with a player like that. And then I talked at length in yesterday's episode about putting Fantilli and Johnson together and how well they complement each other. And I think that helped a lot as well because, Sean Monahan had basically Kirill Marchenko strapped to him for basically the entire season, right? Or the 50-something games that he played. Fantilli did not really have that consistent line mate. He kind of got bounced around a little bit. He was mostly playing 2C, sometimes 3C. He did play a handful of games in that first line left wing spot. But if I can pull up the lines again, Locked On Blue Jackets bingo, I had the tab open and immediately lost it. So we're just going to pull up who Adam Fantilli's most consistent line mates were this season. Okay, his most consistent line mates were Voronkov and Marchenko, which would have happened after Monahan went down with the injury, right? His other most consistent line mates were the Van Riemsdyk Johnson line. We played 102 minutes there. That was the bulk of him kind of before and after the Monahan injury. And then after that, you've got Jenna Fantilli Johnson. He played 71 minutes there. Played 56 minutes between Van Riemsdyk and Aston Reese, 49 minutes between Mikhail Pucha and Cole Sillinger. Don't get me wrong, I like Cole Sillinger a lot, but he was getting a lot of bottom 6/middle 6 line mates when he should have been getting top 6 caliber line mates. And that's partially again, the Blue Jackets had a depth issue this season. I don't think that's an unfair thing to say. They lost two of their top six wingers. They weren't really able to replace them. Like Johnson stepped up. I think Voronkov did a great job, or did, as best as he could. Losing Jenna as well for a lot of the season. But Adam Fantilli, once he had consistent line mates, popped, right? Which I think is a huge thing for a young player. And I want to talk about something else that changed with Adam Fantilli halfway through the season, and that is ice time. And we're going to talk about that in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. First, though, I've got to tell you all about FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and also can't-miss moments. Whether it is a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there has never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have way more ways than ever to play smart and win big. If you're new to FanDuel, you can bet $5, and if that bet wins, you get $200 in bonus bets to spend on whatever you want. It might be smart, for example, to put $5 on the Stanley Cup final being Edmonton and Florida. As much as we hate to see it, seems like that's the way it's going. If you put $5 on that and it turns out to be true, $200 you can spend on whatever you want. The Stanley Cup final, you can bet on the Indiana Pacers winning the NBA championship. You could bet on the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl. I don't know. Anything you want with that $200 in bonus bets. It's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com, place that $5 bet, and if it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, a official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. We're going to talk a little bit more about Adam Fantilli because, again, his ice time leapt up in the second half of the season. And again, it almost definitely coincides with the Monahan injury, which I don't remember exactly when that happened. Was it the January? I think it was the January the 7th game. But before that, he was, 12 minutes, 15 minutes, 17 minutes a couple of times, 18 minutes once, mostly kind of hovering around about the 14-minute mark. After that, his ice time jumps. He's playing 20 minutes a night, 21, 22. He played 25:58 in a game against the Kings, which is a huge amount of ice time. Against the Rangers in one game, 26:59. Like, he's getting all of this ice time, and that definitely helped as well, right? Because the more ice time you get, the more chances you have to do with it. And again, I think that is kind of a not a self-fulfilling prophecy quite, but it's a circle, right? Of if you have good line mates, you get more ice time. And if you have more ice time, you probably score more goals. And if you score more goals, you get to keep that ice time and those line mates. And it circles, and you can't see it, but I'm making circle movements with my pen because I have to have something to fidget with while I record. Otherwise, I forget how to talk. The point here being that all of this stuff is kind of interlocked and interwoven, and it's really good. It's really difficult to look and say, well, he succeeded because of X, he succeeded because of Y or Z or whatever, but he succeeded. That's what counts. And the other thing as well that I wanted to kind of touch on is the Blue Jackets were the best 5-on-5 team in the NHL this season, or the best scorers at 5-on-5. It seems fair to say. And then Adam Fantilli at 5-on-5 had 44 of his points of his, 54? So only 10 power play points for Adam Fantilli this season. 25 goals at even strength, 19 assists. So he had 6 power play goals, I think that is my math. 4 power play assists. So he's getting the bulk of his work done at even strength, which is really, really important, right? Because I always think of power play as like extra, right? If you can create at 5-on-5, that's great. You add power play scoring into that, incredible. The Blue Jackets power play needs to improve this offseason. I think we know that. The penalty kill should also probably stand to improve a little bit. But The power play, I think, is the one that is frustrating because you look at it and it should be way better than it is. I think losing Monahan hurt the power play a lot. Adam Fantilli didn't get a ton of power play time, if I remember rightly. Of his, he had 120 minutes of power play time in the 1,433 minutes overall. So we got, what was that, like 1,200 and change minutes at either 5-on-5 or on the penalty kill. He didn't play a lot on the penalty kill, only 21 minutes. So we'll call it 1,200 even. 5-on-5 minutes, only 120 on the power play. So like that's something that he really needs to add to his game, right? But the thing that excites me the most about Adam Fantilli, and this is where my kind of slightly hyperbolic little box comes in here, is you watch him play and he just plays the game unlike no other player that I can remember seeing in a Blue Jackets jersey, right? And like obviously Artemi Panarin was dynamic and exciting and dominant, and Cam Atkinson holds a bunch of records for the team, and Rick Nash holds the other bunch of records. Obviously, Zach Werenski was elite this season for the Blue Jackets. But I watch Adam Fantilli play, and I'm like, there's something special here, you know? And I talking to, I don't remember if it was Tony Ferrari or Will Scouch that I was talking to about this specifically, but whoever it was basically said, the gap between Adam Fantilli and Connor Bedard on draft day was closer than I think a lot of public scouts wanted it to be or said it was, right? They genuinely believe that the gap between Fantilli and Bedard in terms of overall skill is much, much closer than it actually ended up being, right? Obviously, Fantilli ended up going 3rd overall, which was great for us. I think Leo Carlson is going to be a phenomenal player for the Anaheim Ducks. But I'm so glad that we got Fantilli. And he really does genuinely, and again, maybe this is me being over dramatic or whatever, but like there is something of that Nathan MacKinnon in him, right? And I was almost going to compare him to Connor McDavid, and I'm not going to do that because I know people will lose their minds if I do that. But Connor McDavid has a similar-ish way of, but both he and McDavid both have that kind of way of, they just charge down the ice like a runaway train. MacKinnon does it with a little bit more anger than McDavid, I think, and you see that same anger in Adam Fantilli, right? Of they hate the puck and they want to kill it. So they will charge down the ice like a runaway train, and it makes you want to, like, very, very often when I'm watching the Avs play, I will see Nathan MacKinnon with the puck and watch him start in the neutral zone, and I will just go, uh-oh, out loud. And I can see the beginnings of that with Adam Fantilli. I don't know that he will reach the same level as MacKinnon, you know, the 100 point after 100 point after 100 point seasons and all of the MVP nods and, you know, all of that. But there's something there. And that to me is what's really exciting. And admittedly, I was not around for, you know, the early-ish days of the Blue Jackets. You know, I never saw Rick Nash play in a Blue Jackets jersey. Like that was before my time. And if that makes me a fake Blue Jackets fan, then so be it, right? But Adam Fantilli is the most exciting, dynamic player that I can remember seeing in a Blue Jackets jersey. And I think there is genuinely going to be a day to come where we look back and, you know, it's 20 years from now, it's 2045, and, you know, you're putting Adam Fantilli's jersey in the rafters, and, like, I genuinely think he is going to be the best player to ever wear a Blue Jackets jersey. I think he's going to retire as the best Blue Jacket of all time, which is really fun and exciting to see kind of the beginning of his career like this, right? And again, he's played a season and a half. We are putting so many carts before the horse, but what do we have if we don't have that hope and excitement about this young core, right? And I got a comment today from an everydayer, which, like, I haven't responded to yet, but I get it, right? We have, and Z-Man J says, we have every reason to be optimistic for next season, but I've been following this team for too long. I'm waiting for the shoe to drop and everything to fall apart again. My head says it's not likely, but my soul is ready for failure. And, like, on the one hand, I agree, right? I feel like so much of being a Blue Jackets fan up to this point has been, well, next year it'll probably be worse. But I don't think so. I think next year it's going to be better. And I think Adam Fantilli is going to be at the head of that charge. And again, similar to the conversation we had about Kent Johnson yesterday, get Fantilli a second winger, a top 6 winger, as much as James Van Riemsdyk and Boone Jenner filled in a gap for this team this year, get him another top 6 winger, and I think you're going to see this kid hit like even bigger levels of incredible. So let's talk a little bit more about that. Let's take a quick break, and then I want to talk about what next season should bring for someone like Adam Fantilli. So we'll do that in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. We're talking all about Adam Fantilli, and I want to talk a little bit about like what does he need to do next season, right? Because obviously there were things this season that I think are things that need tweaking, let's say. I think there are things that definitely need to improve. Like face-offs is a big one for me. He was actually worse this year in the face-off dot than he was last year, only 41%. I do think that, again, having someone like Sean Monahan around will help, because I think, and this is maybe unkind to Boone Jenner, but I think Boone Jenner is just kind of good at face-offs and isn't really sure why. He just is. Sean Monahan is one of the best face-off guys in the league, and I think having him around to basically explain the mechanics and we'll do this, and this is because, and this will happen, right, is going to really, really help. It's going to really help Fantilli. Young centers always struggle with face-offs, right? This is not something that I'm super worried about. I also don't think that that's like a deal breaker, right? If he can't win a face-off, it's not the end of the world, right? It's nice to have, but I don't think it's like a game-breaking. I don't think it's a game-breaking thing. Do I think that this year's numbers were a little unsustainable? Sure. So next season, last episode I talked about how I expect Kent Johnson's point total to go up from last season. I'm expecting, 30 goals, 50 assists from Kent Johnson. I wouldn't be surprised if Adam Fantilli's points totals next season either dip a little bit or stay static, because I think he needs to improve his off-puck play more than anything else. And that, that includes things like face-offs I would consider an off-puck play, which sounds weird, but I think positioning, he needs to be a little bit better. Like his skating speed is pretty good, but I think he could stand to be just a little more agile. Like, again, Kent Johnson really worked on his skating this season, and you can tell, and I would love Adam Fantilli to work on his skating a little bit more. Like, it's fine, but he's never going to be he's never going to be one of the, like, Connor McDavid is just an incredible skater, right? And I think that's the real difference between him and McKinnon is the skating ability or their skating style. Fantilli is much more McKinnon-like than he is McDavid-like. So, do what McDavid is doing. Do what McKinnon is doing. Work on that type of hockey, and I think you're going to get real dividends. I know that Fantilli had worked with Crosby and McKinnon last summer. I don't know whether that meant that he went to Nova Scotia with them, because I believe that his family has a home out in the Maritimes somewhere, or whether he ended up going to Sidney Crosby's super secret exclusive camp in Vail that he runs every year, where he brings everyone to the ski slopes of Colorado and makes them skate till they puke. But that can't possibly be a bad thing to do, right? So it's mostly things like that. I think his goal scoring is great. I think would love to see him pass the puck a little bit more, but I think just kind of keep developing, keep doing reps. There's nothing in his game that I'm like, oh, that's going to be a problem if he doesn't fix it, right? A lot of it is just he's 20 years old. He's figuring out what works in college doesn't always work in the NHL. So he's got to adapt. Kent Johnson adapted, and look what he did in his third season. I am really, really excited to see what Adam Fantilli does coming into training camp, because like it's either going to go one or two ways, right? I think he's either going to have a really slow start to his I always want to call them junior seasons, which sounds weird, but like his third season, or he's going to come at it like he was shot out of a cannon, right? And I kind of lean towards the latter of those two, but I also think that like if we get to Christmas and Adam Fantilli is, not quite a point a game or below, then it's not necessarily time to press that big red panic button, right? Still a very young player. Nathan McKinnon, again, to go back to the McKinnon comparison, Nathan McKinnon didn't really pop for a while. Like he was, let me pull up his numbers exactly. So again, he had a pretty good rookie season. Had 63 points in 82 games. Second season, had 38 points in 64. Third season, 52 in 72. Didn't pop until his fifth season. He had 97 points in 74 games back in the 2017-18 season. And since then, he's just, again, lights out. 99 points, 93, 65 in only 48 games. 88 in 65, 300-point seasons, including 140 points in the 23-24 season. Now, I don't know that he will, that Fantilli, will hit those highs, but there's definitely potential there also. The other thing I want to mention is clearly face-offs are not the be-all and end-all, because Nathan McKinnon has a career face-off percentage of 46%. So clearly not being able to win as many face-offs as probably he would like to is clearly not hurting him. So would I like Adam Fantilli to get better at face-offs? Sure. Am I worried about it? Not really. But my guess is that Adam Fantilli probably follows the Nathan McKinnon trajectory of, that's just how power forwards work, right? And there's not a ton of them in the game anymore, so I think a lot of people just assume that, they've not really been, worked out of the game necessarily or forced out of the game, but I think there is a lot more emphasis put on skill over size. So when you get these players that have that combination of skill and size, I think, it takes a while, His body is still growing. I think he's probably, I'm going to say he's pretty much grown into it. That seems untrue because, again, he's only 20 years old. But, if he doesn't really take off until he's, 22, 23, that's my guess. And I think we're going to hit that 22, 23 mark, and he is just going to, rip off, a 40-goal season or something in, 2 years' time, which is going to rule. But patience, right? The thing that everyone's been preaching with Caden Lindstrom, who is from a very similar mold of power forward, but I think slightly different to Fantilli. You want patience. Could Adam Fantilli have done with another year in college? Probably, but that's, hindsight is 2020. Came to the NHL. I'm not, mad about it, I thought he was great in his rookie season. I thought he was better this season. Now he's got to keep growing, right? He's got to take what he took this season, and he's got to either do it or do better. I am expecting another 30-goal season out of Adam Fantilli. And honestly, if he plays the second half of the season, if he plays the full season the way he played the second half of this season, he's on pace for a 50-goal season, which sounds insane, but that's what he was on pace for. If you take the second half of the season before the after the sophomore slump happened. So we'll see. Big things coming for Adam Fantilli. Whether they happen next season or in a couple of years, I'm not too worried about that, but I really do think that Blue Jackets fans are going to enjoy watching Adam Fantilli play for approximately the next 15 years. Maybe longer if we get lucky. But that's kind of what I've got for today. Tomorrow we're going to go back. We're going to do another Free Agent Friday. I know I've done a couple of Free Agent Not Fridays this week, but let's talk about Aaron Ekblad as another option on defense. Again, there's a couple of guys that I want to talk about in terms of should we trade for them, but I'm going to get through my free agent list first. So we're going to talk about Aaron Ekblad, who is a UFA this season and is likely moving on from Florida since they brought in Seth Jones. So we'll talk about what he could bring to the Blue Jackets. And thank you for listening to this episode, for making it your first listen of the day every single day. We are free and available on all podcast platforms, over on YouTube, and you can find Me on Blue Sky at JAKOBFORSTER. You can find the show at LO_Blue Jackets over on Twitter. You can email me at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. And until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.